the YouTube channel, YouTube, address. Okay, hang on a second. Sorry, being really slow here up on YouTube land for some reason. All right. Okay, I got this. I'm going to drop it in the chats. Then drop it over here on Discord. Okay. All right. I think we're talking about orders of ignorance, right? Part 2. Seems like was the topic of our day. And let me wonder if my whole system is just being stupid all of a sudden. Let me see. Sorry, being really slow over here on my lappy. All right. So that, everybody see that okay? And then let me just anyway. Let me see. For you guys on Teams, we can do. I don't know if what happens. I haven't actually tried to like share a part of a screen, share like a window or an app. Nah, bag it. I don't. Wait, share content. Okay, waiting on Teams now. So first of all, let me see. Well, how many people we've got on the Discord chat? Quite a few. Just curious. Any thoughts from the last time as we talked about the orders of ignorance? Okay. All right. So yeah. So for those on Teams, if you just pull YouTube up, That would save me the hassle of trying to get teams to cooperate. Yeah. So just yeah, just keep being ignorant there, 4x4. Yeah, that's all you can do, man. Uh, End of semester. Let's start with how you guys doing on end of semester madness. Um, Let me see. Aaron not doing great. Michael hanging on. Want to cry every time you walk into AI class. I'm so sorry. I'm losing my voice and I have to. I hope this doesn't make excess clacky sounds, but I have to. Or it'll see a clacky. I apologize for the clacky. I really do. Anyway, this is the easiest thing you've got on your schedule, so that's deliberate on my part. Any other thoughts about sort of becoming aware of what you don't know, becoming, the awareness, the discovery that there's crap you don't know, that you didn't even know you didn't know, is really the path of enlightenment, you know. Um, Daniel, the professor you're thinking of is Charles Xavier. Um, just FYI, um, aka Professor Rudolph, and I like him too. We actually, I know we're not here to talk about George, but um, yeah, we were undergrads together at BYU a long time ago, and then we were grad students together. I think he was in his PhD program. I was in my master's program. So yeah, yeah. So Jack, what do you mean by that? You said I feel putting away bias is important when approaching the orders of ignorance. What do you mean by that? And I'm really curious about your experience on orders of ignorance. I want to back up and go back up to just the interlude. Remember to recap: zeroth order ignorance in a particular domain is knowing the answer. You know what the question is, you know what the answer is. Okay. First order ignorance, I know the question, but I don't know the answer. So, in other words, I know that I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm aware that I don't know. Second order ignorance, um, second order ignorance is I have a framework, but I don't know the question. In other words, I don't even know that I don't know. Okay, because I do possess a framework, but I don't yet know what the question is. So I don't know what I don't know. And finally, in third order, then this was the crap crap you don't know, and you don't know. Uh, but third order ignorance, where you don't have a framework, and so the reason why you're doing all this stuff is the goal. And I'm trying to kind of create a summary here. Zeroth order ignorance. Um, I know the question, I know the answer. Okay. In first order, I don't have answers, but I do have the question. In second order, I don't have the question, but I do have the framework. And in third order ignorance, I don't even have the framework. So the goal constantly is to, in every given domain, is to sort of work our way, up, if you want to look at it that way, in terms of enlightenment, or down if you want to look at it that way. But if we're constantly learning, exposing ourselves to good new fields, taking classes that are just because they're interesting, or watching videos on YouTube that are educational, or taking master classes, or watching TED Talks, or just learning things, we perpetually are creating frameworks, and those frameworks then allow us to ask the interesting questions. Okay, I'm a little behind on some of the thread. Um, we got a shout out from Daniel about taking compilers from Peter. I have not had him. I mean, had him. He's a new faculty, so I haven't been like in his class. Obviously, I haven't had him, but I mean by that, I haven't sat in his class to see how he's doing. Um, but yeah, no, Aaron, take the compiler class. Honestly, it'll put you through some hell, but it really does kind of take a lot of your CS background and converge it into a cool place. Um, okay, so back to this thing. Um, very little of interest happens down here at the zeroth and first order of ignorance. All of the interesting creativity is happening up here as you construct a new framework that no one's ever constructed before. You know, um, and agree, Ashlyn, about rate my professors. It's good. The the um, the larger the N, the relatively lower voice the crankies have. That's kind of the bottom line. There's a disproportionate, impact from the cranky few. Although if you see somebody and their average on rate my professors is 1.5, that's a pattern. you know, Everybody takes a hit now and then for either a bad semester or just a cranky student. But um, anyway, also make sure you've got they have on rate, since we're talking about rate my professors. Um, there's if you're at a different university, you have to be at the right one. You have to be, for whatever the professor is, like at UVU. That's important. All right. Everything cool happens at the higher levels. So here's the thing I want to show you. I'm going to show you this picture right here and think about your careers, and then we can transition to talking about some other stuff. Um, yeah, Braden, look up if you're going to look for individuals to leave a review, make sure you're leaving them at the right school. Because like I think I'm on there. I think I'm on rate my professors twice. From my 15 years at BYU and once from my 3 years at UVU. 3.5. Okay, there are different types of teams, and what I'm going to show you is right here how those fit. Okay, and these are going to correspond with the orders of ignorance. A tactical job is a job in which the goal is to do something. Okay. You're making French fries at McDonald's. Soon as they can build a machine to do the entire thing for you, including drop the frozen French fries, and you're part of the machine. If you're working at McDonald's, you're part of the machine. If you're, yeah, I'm talking about the parts where there's very little human aspect to it, and the part that is human aspect is like do it right or the fry is going to be worse. You're not gonna lend anything to the quality of a McDonald's French fry by thinking in that job. Okay, and problem solving the job. So that's clearly related. I'm going to back it up. Actually, I'll just do it from here. The tactical job, the job is to do something. Problem solving, the job is to fix something. You're kind of like a little bit of debugging. Okay, you're not super strategic. You're still kind of tactical, but there's some problem solving, okay, that needs to go on. On the creative kind of a team, your job is to build something. And then the learning team, the job is to learn something. This may be like counterintuitive a little bit to think about, um, you know, the idea. Okay, case in point, I was talking to a friend recently who had been in technology about, I don't know, 30 years ago, 25, 30. And he made the comment that um, he was frustrated by the fact that in technology you're always having to learn in order to just be current, just to stay abreast. And that was, I don't know if it was frustrating, but he said that it was like taking too much time. And I thought to myself that it struck me a little funny because I thought that my experience in the field of technology, granted, I started by, like you, by going to college and getting degrees and getting a foundation. And the foundation, I think, made it easier to keep learning. I think that's one of the things you get in an undergrad degree in CS. You don't get a lot of skills that you immediately can apply, but you learn how to learn, and you lay a foundation in computer science, theoretical foundation, that makes it easier for you to to apply yourself, because the applications change very quickly, but the theory doesn't change quickly. So if you understand the theory, you understand database theory, you understand operating system theory, then the details are going to change, but you're going to be able to adapt for a very long time. And I've experienced that in my career. But I just thought, no, 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 this is a little bit goofy because the reality is that the field of computer science technology, you are in fact being paid to learn. You have to consider that, look, if you've got a bug in your code, the only reason you have a bug in your code is because there's something you don't know, right? There's something you don't know that you need to find the answer to. You're learning, okay? If you're trying to come up with what's the right thing for your company to build, what's the way to design it, you're learning. It's not just like, somebody says I need another, bunch of fries, and in software, this is part of the reason that software process is so loose. Software process mostly says figure out what the right thing to do is and then do it. Then rinse and repeat. That's software process. And there are things like everybody needs to do a certain thing, or bugs need to go into Jira, or you've got to use, Git as our repository to check code in and out, and things that are part of the structure. But most of the kind of process that exists when you're making, you're flipping burgers, or I used to sometimes joke about companies that treat you with so little respect that they're really asking you to just flip software patties. So that's what I called it, flipping software patties. Um, you know, the other thing I sometimes call it shoveling bit. You can go to the stables and shovel the bit. Um, if you're flipping software patties or shoveling bit, um, there's no interesting companies that are actually asking you to do that. And if they are, it's an entry level that there's some things that are standard that you can do, but mostly there's a lot of learning, and it doesn't matter what engineering job you're doing, there's going to be a ton of learning. Anyway, but I thought my friend, it struck me as weird because I thought to myself, well, first of all, that's not wrong. And second of all, I've spent my entire career learning nonstop. Now, maybe that's exhausting, but what's your solution? To do one thing for the next 40 years and then you're like really good at that one thing? That to me sounds like a weird brand of hell. But so when you're dealing with the tactical, that's making fries. The fix something is more like the fix it man, you know, the home repair guy. I got a leaky faucet. Okay, let's figure it. In other words, you don't know exactly why you know that it's leaking, and you know the dynamics, and you know how faucets work, you know how all these things work. You don't know exactly why that one's working. So you dive in, you apply your extensive framework. You know the questions to ask. Where's the drip coming from? Where does it start? Is it coming out of the top? Is it in the drain? There's structure. And then once you figure that part out, you pretty much know what to do. And that's kind of the problem solving. In the creative, you're building something, okay? And you might think, well, that's a lot of what we do. And it is a lot of what we do in our software field is build stuff. But I'm just saying, along the way to building, there is a crap ton, metric crap ton of learning that goes along, right? And okay, I want to back up. Um, Let me see. I'm just backing up. Let me see. Jack said, back to the bias comment. I feel bias strengthens what we think we know, making it harder for us to go further down the orders of ignorance. Yes. Yeah, the bias stops us, right? And that actually relates to this little interlude, the thrill of saying, I don't know, right? The thrill of not knowing. That is, let me see something. Hang on just a second. Okay, no, that's right. Okay. Sorry, I had a weird artifact on my screen, but I got it taken care of. The joy of being wrong, right? The letting go of the biases so that you can learn, so you can be open. It also takes a lot of I don't know, courage. You got to realize that you're going to feel like an idiot for the rest of your career, whether you are one or not. You're going to feel that way, you know. I mean, I remember, like, I saw one of my former students from BYU co-authored a book about some technology, right? It was an O'Reilly book. Um, the book was about Kafka. Now, what's interesting is I know about Kafka, the author, and I've read what's it called, The Trial by Kafka. So I've actually read a novel by Kafka, but I've never heard of the framework called Kafka until today when I saw that he had written a book on it. I mean, welcome to every time you turn around, someone's making new stuff, building new things, creating new frameworks. And now there's another thing I need to learn or at least be aware of, as the world is evolving. And part of the reason is our field is just expanding, right? It is, when I was an undergraduate in the 80s, there were no courses on networking. We had compilers. I did have a compilers course like you have. But there were no courses on networking or data communications. There were no courses on security because it wasn't a thing. There were no courses on machine learning or AI because it wasn't a thing. There were barely beginning to be courses on like graphics, you know? And then, let alone, there were no courses on web development or, you know what I mean? I mean, there's just like so much that has exploded. And then so eventually you just get thinner and thinner and thinner. You know about things, but you just get really thinner. And you just have to be really comfortable. Back to our interlude, you have to become very comfortable at just saying, I don't know what that is. Like somebody mentions something and you're like, wait, what is that? And then if they play, like we talked about last time, if they play the you don't know what that is card, then you know, just like, yeah, I don't know what that is. Um, so let me see. Is McDonald's a cyborg? Yes. Kind of a hive mind. Um, Braden said, I've heard to keep up, you need to be good at being a self-directed learner. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you're sitting around waiting for somebody, look, they're not paying you when you go to do, um, you know, uh, a job, they're not paying you to do when you're a developer. They're not paying you to do something that has been done before. If they wanted to pay you, if they wanted something that had been done before, they would have just gone and bought it commercial off the shelf because it was done before. They're paying you because your job, your specifics, the specifics of your job, you realize that nobody in the world has ever done before. The specifics. Broadly speaking, people have developed code at that company before to do things, but broadly, but specifically speaking, no one's ever done what you've done before, what you're doing. That's why they're paying you. So you have to constantly be in a self-directed learning. And if you just throw up your hands and act like you have a poopy diaper, you are not very valuable to your company. And you practice that right now in school figuring crap out when it doesn't make sense, or when you have so many resources, you figure it out, you dive in. Um, yeah, so BB Goose, it would be nice to be good at something. You can be good at things, but you're just always going to be ignorant of the bulk of it. That's the bottom line. Okay, 4x4. Talking about a book called America That Used to Be Us. Four types of jobs in the world. I'm not familiar with this book. Two basic branches are creative and service, and then those two get divided on how you approach the task. If you're a creative server versus a serving server, if you come up with creative and unique solutions or just do the basic job, all the serving server jobs are being outsourced or automated. Yeah, it relates. It relates. The ultimate point is that the only jobs that will stay valid after industrialization 4.0 is the creative creation jobs, right? Which is exactly what I'm talking about right here, which I think is the creative and learning jobs. Um, yes, yeah. When you're where you're tasked to solve problems and choose to do it in unique, creative, unscripted approaches. The best companies have a lot of room for you um, to be creative and to do things in your own way. If they're overly micromanaging you and you're a developer, one of my principles certainly as a manager, but even as a developer, is trust me or fire me. Now, you understand that if they're like, you're not using source control, oh, trust me or fire me. Well, you're a dork. You probably need to be fired. Um, but I mean, you've got to understand how to be a well behaved citizen and get along with others, play well with others in the sandbox. But I'm just saying um, that if they're going to come in and micromanage every bit of what you're doing, either they're oppressive or you're maybe, if what they're saying is correct, then you might not be as good as you think you are. But if you're really, really good, a great company is going to give you room to move, room to wiggle around. Thanks for the link to the Amazon book. Um, okay, did I actually say that, BB? Being an a-hole doesn't make you diverse. That sounds, it's great. I'll take credit. It sounds like me. I don't remember specifically dropping that gem, but it still is true. That's not the kind of diversity we need. That's funny. Okay. Yeah, I know. I don't remember. I don't remember half the gems I dropped. We're talking about diversity. Yeah, being an a-hole is not the diversity we need. Nice. Okay. Cool. Anyway, look, that's the orders of ignorance. The practical application is just to not be afraid of being ignorant about things. You know, you're going to be ignorant about all kinds of things all the freaking time. You know, that's bottom line. And it's really, really okay. So you just gotta get into your comfort with that. You know, really be comfortable with your ignorance. We all have it. We all have it. And there's no way around it. You know, it's the human condition. So, don't run around embarrassed that you don't know stuff. Okay, let's go question driven. Any questions on the orders of ignorance before we peel off? And well, and before we peel off to other topics, do we have anything else about the orders of ignorance? Ooh, let me see something. Okay, we're good there. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm bopping around. Maybe Goose, is it right to say that there isn't any stage we should always be at? Uh, except for the meta level, which would be the stage of always learning. Yeah, yeah. So after last lecture, I felt the main idea is that we're always shifting. Yes, we are always shifting. We are always learning. And one thing, I don't know if I mentioned this. I thought I did. Um, I'm pulling up our master sheet, by the way. It's what I'm bopping around on over here. Um, I don't know if I shared this, but when I was a kid and I grew up in this one horse town, no horse town, in Iowa, and a little dirt road Main Street town, and and a lot of my friends' dads were working. I don't know, working at John Deere's, working at the factory, working at um, you know, working at the meat packing plant, that kind of whatever. And they'd work there 25 years and retire or whatever, and they'd be 50 and they'd be retired, and it it kind of always just, for whatever reason, it's just um, personal, just it's just me. So not saying, that I'm the measure of all truth, which is, you know, anathema to the concept of the orders of ignorance, where we, can be right or wrong all the time. But it scared the willies out of me anyway. The notion for me, I just, and one of the reasons that I went into computer science, huh, okay. Looks like we got some stagger. I got an error message on YouTube just saying not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. So I don't know what is going on. Like I said earlier, everything seems to be a little jaggy. Apologize. Um, but anyway, I was always pretty terrified of just, I don't know, just doing the same thing, the one thing for 40 years or 30 years, or I think that it probably just speaks to the fact that me personally, just needed to always be stretched. And when I was trying to get my life together and figure out what I wanted to study, what I wanted to do for school, it was kind of, I looked at computer science and I was like, hey, this is not bad. I thought I remember having the conscious thought in my early 20s when I was going back to school, the conscious thought that there would be no end to the things I could. We have not had a secret word. Um, the that there would be no end to the things I would need to learn. You know, and then what happened was uh, it was an it became this endlessly feeling incompetent. And then I began to weary of that, where I was just like, and I think all that really happened, I didn't then, at some point I'm like, can we just stop for just like a year? Just freeze everything and I can maybe start to just catch up with stuff, Um, because it's exhausting, right? It really is. So I haven't gotten over that feeling of being ignorant about everything. I've just come to peace with it. I just recognize that the more things you know about, the more by definition you're ignorant about. It's like the more the bigger your lake of knowledge expands, the more the frontier expands. So you learn, what you don't know. So let me see. 4 by 4. Let me hit you first. We do have a secret word. What should we do for a secret word? How about how about either these one of these two expressions: one horse town or dirt road Main Street. Let's go with that. Okay. I just put it in the chat on Discord. One horse town or dirt road Main Street. Either one of those two, or both. No extra credit for saying both in the little chat-a-majiggy in your little writing. Um, Jack, what would you do? What would you do if what would you do if I preserve? That means if you didn't have a framework to find a question. Yeah, the problem is you don't even know you don't have a framework. That's catch 22, right? Um, you know what I mean? You isn't that right, Jack? I mean, you don't have a framework. If you don't have a framework to find a question, by definition, you're not aware of it. That's the dilemma. Okay, that is the bloody dilemma. Think about it for just a second. So what do you do? What do you let's open it up because we only got about 13 minutes. You don't know the question. You don't have the framework to find a question. By definition, if I know that there's a question I need to find, it's paradoxical. I can't know that there's a question to find without knowing the question. Although there's a little bit of getting close when I do have a framework and I can feel a bunch of questions kind of percolating and I can tell and feel that there's a question that's going to bubble up. But in this case, I don't even have a framework. So what do I do? I mean, obviously I have to generate a framework from which to generate the question. Any thoughts? Jack started it, so I'm just waiting. Seeing who's just hanging out. Data collection? Sure. And it depends on what you mean by data collection. To me, data collection, being a data guy, is a narrow, data collection is a narrow thing. I would think of it more as concept collection. Um, could be the problem with that one is you don't necessarily know. So BB Goose, I'm determine what my end goal is first. I don't know if we know. Um, do you even know at that point? Because here's what I would say: if you lacked the ability if you don't have a framework for the question, there's two things that can happen, and it can come at you from both directions. One is I encounter a question, you know, and having encountered the question, which I'd never encountered before, I'm now in a position where, um, okay, I've encountered the question. It now makes me go, wait, that's a thing? What is that? What is that even part of? Someone goes, blah, 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 string theory. And you thought it was string cheese theory. And you're like, wait, wait, wait. And you're like, what is string? So you encounter a concept by just being exposed to so many different ideas. And then someone goes, well, it's a thing in physics. And you're like, what's cool about it? You know, so you now, you're kind of creating a framework around the question itself that you can stumble on. So the discovery of a new thing can be by itself be a sort of a mini framework that works in the other direction. But sometimes you're just like, hey, I'm just going to watch some YouTube videos about physics because I'm interested in it. Then by doing that, I stumble on string theory, string cheese theory. You know what I mean? We just kind of can sometimes start at the top and just be learning. And I'm just a big fan. I think Um, and I think that if you, let me put it this way, there's a lot of people my age, man, my generation, which is, I'm the tail end of the baby boom. So I don't know if my generation is the baby boom, but it's the transition anyway between the baby boom and whatever came after the baby boom. I don't even know. Um, what came after the baby boom? Gen X? I don't know. Anyway, point is, uh, people my age that haven't read a book in 20 years haven't, they've been in for 10 years, they've been in a social media echo chamber, just being spoon fed their own ideas back to them as if they were truth. There's no challenging of the ideas. And these are the people, some of you have parents like this and maybe grandparents like this. Some of you are like this, probably. I don't know. But a lot of you have there's a generational thing, I think, where a lot of you, I'm probably more like the age of your parents, but maybe more of your I think there was more of a generational thing to figure out what you know and then know what you know. And then, damn it, I know it. And this becomes your dogmatic little, that's the way the world works and there's no other way around that. And that's tough, you know. So anyway, but you've seen a lot of that. It's a resistance to having ideas challenged, to being wrong. Well, one of the ways you do that is you're reading constantly, you're learning constantly, you're in your comfort zone constantly, and you're okay not knowing. And I think that's one of the biggest things that the Orders of Ignorance, gets, in my view, is the Orders of Ignorance teaches you to be comfortable in the not knowing, which, like we said earlier, paradoxically makes you always open to receiving. When you say I don't know, that's not a final position. That's a statement about a lack. And having stated the lacking, I can now open that up and receive. You know. So anyway, so when you are in a mode where you're not reading anything, you're not learning anything, you're just in this echo chamber, it's like chewing gum and your brain just goes to putty. And pretty soon you're not learning anything, and then you're listening to the same music for the last 30 years and nothing's changed there, whatever. You know what I'm trying to say. I think you know what I'm trying to say. A few comments. Let me see. Um, Interesting. Braden said learning about commonalities provides a head start for sudden shifts like building blocks. Yeah. Well, that's also, I think, the idea of understanding history so that, you can navigate and see the trends. You know what I mean? For example, if I can win Godwin's law for this conversation, um, I am in the middle of reading the Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. And one of the interesting things, I've watched a lot of things going on in the US in the last decade, especially the last 5 years. And what's really interesting is the tendency of well, I think it tends to be one side more than the other to accuse the other of being Nazi-like. But of course, Nazism is apart from being a ideology, a loathsome ideology, it's also a set of tactics. And so, we commonly refer to neo Nazis as being on the right. But if you look at which is fair, I think, at some level, and those character, this is more of a 305G topic, but those characterizations of left and right, and what does that really mean? Were the Nazis in fact right wing at the time in Germany, or were they more left wing? They were socialist. But what kind? What brand? Was it a ruse? A lot of questions. But the point I'm getting at is um, I read with quite a bit of interest. Same thing with 1984. Point just being, I read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, and I see political tactics of the Nazis played out on both sides of our political spectrum. I read 1984, which I recently reread this last year, and I see both sides being Big Brother like in their behaviors. Um, and I'm politically I'm independent. And which as I've said in 305G allows me to sit in the middle with my self-righteous smug self. You know what I mean? It's like there is a certain pride of the independent. Don't blame me. I'm independent. Like I'm self-righteously immune. Like and I've been accused of cowardice for seeing fault in both sides. Anyway, but be that as it may. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, what am I trying to say? Uh, Reading The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich has enlightened me. I mentioned Kafka. Reading Franz Kafka enlightened me about certain elements of government and morality. And reading the biography of Martin Luther King, which I finished not too long ago, tremendous, as an exposure to what went on, from Reverend King's perspective. Obviously, his experience, um, incredibly enlightening and fantastic. But reading just reading and learning and not getting just trapped in your little echo chamber. You know, Let me kind of summarize up, and then we're going to wrap up. 4 by 4. I usually find frameworks for things I don't know as I watch documentary or read a book. Right. The issue is that if I don't have a framework, it means I don't know the topic exists. So I have to study things at a breadth level. Yes, you have to study things broadly, and that's why if your whole world is technology, and then on the weekend you write code, and then the only books you read are about technology, you know, I think there's a lot of things you can't think about because you don't have a framework to ask questions. Cassidy, echo chambers have always existed. The internet's allowed everyone who thinks they're right to have a voice. Yes. It also has allowed Cassidy, and we talk about this in 305G, the internet, social media in particular, has allowed customized echo chambers. So we not only have custom echo chambers, every individual literally has their very own personalized echo chamber. That's really scary. Um, yeah, American politics, and I would say all politics, Cassidy, international. But just pointing the finger at one side to hide that you're doing it as well from your voter base. Yeah, just playing to your own voter base. Seeing fault in both sides doesn't make you a coward. It means you're awake. Yeah, well, I think that's actually true, and I do believe that. I see people; they're basically biased. It's like sports. You're wearing blue, you're cheering for the Cougars. You're wearing red, you're cheering for the Utes. UU doesn't have a football team, so we're independent. Football, as football is concerned, we're independent because we don't have a football team. But yeah. Anyway, hey, it's 11:50. I got lunch to eat. You do too. I hope that was interesting. Coming back, um, we're going to we're done with the orders of ignorance, and we'll come back. Um, how's it work? How's it work? Yeah, we're back next week. No, is that right? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Do we only have 3 days? Hang on a second. Yeah, we've got the 15th, then Thanksgiving off, then the 29th, and then the 6th. We only have 3 more days. So if there are any other topics you want to be getting to, but I think we're just going to keep going here. The link is everyone has the link to this doc, and so I'm just going to, unless you're voting, I'm going to gravitate to whatever's most interesting to me, where I maybe have the most things to say. So, all right, that's been edited now to be the 15th. Okay, later, my friends. I'm out.